Hello, today I'm coming with this continuation of the message of yesterday. Yesterday, we saw how David wanted to show kindness to anyone from the house of Saul, and Mephibosheth was this person. And we saw that he wanted to show by the kindness of God and not the kindness of man, because the kindness of man has parameters. But the kindness of God has no parameters. When God wants to show his kindness to somebody, he has no parameter. He doesn't look at where you are. He doesn't look at who you are. He doesn't look at uh your background. He doesn't look at that. But when it's man's kindness, man begins to put on some parameters. He begins to look at with man's eyes and with man's mind. But today we are going to look at who Mephibosheth really is. What happened to him? What brought him to Lo-Debar? What brought him to that place in the first place? For those who remember this story, Mephibosheth was Jonathan's son, and he was born with both feet. But because of some circumstances and incident, his nurse or his nanny dropped him and he became lame in both feet. So when I looked at the name Mephibosheth, what does it mean? It says it when I browsed it from the internet, and it tells me that Mephibosheth means the destroyer of shame. So actually, God is not putting you in a situation of shame because he wants you to end in shame. Sometimes God puts you in a situation of shame because he wants to manifest his glory, because he wants to use you as an instrument of his glory. He wants to use you as an instrument to demonstrate who he really is. In the case of Mephibosheth, he wanted to use Mephibosheth to demonstrate that it doesn't matter who you are, where he wants to demonstrate his kindness. He will take you from anywhere. He will take you from dust to grace, from grass to grace. He will take you from dust to something. He will take you from Lo-Debar, from nothingness, out of nothingness. He will make something out of you. So you realize that when you read from 2 Samuel chapter 4 verse 4, let's read. It says, "And Jonathan son of Saul had a son who was lame in his feet. He was 5 years old when the report about Saul and Jonathan came from Jezreel. His nurse picked him up and fled, but as she was hurrying to escape, he fell and became lame. His name was Mephibosheth." So actually that is one of the reasons why Mephibosheth ended up in Lo-Debar. He was born with his 2 feet. He was born with his 2 feet, but because of some circumstances, some incident, he ended up as a lame person. But does it mean that because he became lame, that was the end of his story? No. First of all, his name means the destroyer of shame. So Mephibosheth was born to destroy shame in the lineage of Saul because his grandfather already brought shame in that lineage. If you read, you know the story of Saul and David. You know how Saul ended up. He ended up in a shameful manner. He was a king, he disobeyed God, he fought David, and he ended up in shame. He was killed in a shameful manner at the battlefield. So Jonathan had a son called Mephibosheth, and Mephibosheth was born to destroy that shame in that in Saul's lineage. You realize that Mephibosheth became one of the most important personalities in David's kingdom. In David's in his kingdom, because he he had to sit and eat and dine. He had to take breakfast. He had to take dinner. He had to take supper. He had to take even what you call brunch, whatever. Whenever David sat on the table, he also sat with David to eat. So, do you realize that Mephibosheth was born and he was given that name Mephibosheth? At the age of 5 years, what was least expected happened to him. I don't know what situation happened to you at your birth, or what situation happened to you that brought you to Lo-Debar. What situation actually brought you to a state of shamefulness? What situation brought you to a state of barrenness? What situation brought you to a state of fruitlessness? What situation brought you to a state of joblessness? What situation brought you to a state of nothingness? I have good news for you. The fact that you are in that state does not mean that is the end of your story. It doesn't mean that is the end of your story. God has everything planned out, that He's going to use you to break that shame. Either you break the shame in your family, either you break the shame in your lineage, either you break the shame in your generation, maybe you break the shame in your nation, maybe you break the shame in the world. But God has a specific and a peculiar destiny and purpose for every one of us. You don't have to be contented, or you don't have to feel sad or feel diminished, or you don't have to feel low. You don't have to feel like as if God has forgotten you or God has forsaken you when you're going through a state of nothingness, when you're going through a state of shame, when you're going through a state of disgrace. Do you know when Mephibosheth was in Lo-Debar, I don't know his communication with God. I don't know what he was telling God. I don't know what was going through his mind. I don't know if he was thinking that, was he thinking that I wasn't born this way? I was born with my 2 feet. I'm supposed to be walking like everybody else. My grandfather was a king. If my father was alive, I'm sure maybe he would have been the king, and I would have been at the palace. I don't know if that was the mindset of Mephibosheth, or was he thinking on did he have a different mindset? Was he thinking that, was he just thanking God for the situation that he is at the moment? Was he hoping? Maybe he was hoping, maybe he was saying, one day my grandfather was a king. One day I will go to that throne. One day I may end up in the palace. The Bible doesn't tell us what his thoughts were. But there are different mindsets when you find yourself in a situation characterized by shame, characterized by nothingness, characterized by barrenness, a situation characterized by desolation. What is your mindset? Because your mindset determines your destination. If you should ask me what was Mephibosheth's mindset, I'll tend to tell you that Mephibosheth had a positive mindset. Because, first of all, his name means the destroyer of shame. He had a positive mindset. He told himself that one day, as my grandfather was in that palace, one day I must end up in that palace. He didn't know how. He didn't know how, but he believed. He somehow believed that he would end up in that palace. And I don't know his relationship with God. The Bible doesn't tell us. But if you should ask me what was Mephibosheth's relationship with God, I'll say he had a very good relationship with God. I will say Mephibosheth was a prayerful person. I will say Mephibosheth was prayerful. He will pray to God. He will bring all his situation before God. He will lay everything about his life before God. He will tell God that I cannot end like this. He will tell God that I have to be better than my grandparent. I cannot be worse than my grandfather. The generation, the when the generation, the younger generation has to be better than the older generation. I would think Mephibosheth had a positive mindset. His name tells us Mephibosheth, the destroyer of shame. If his name was the destroyer of shame, I don't think he will be sitting at his own corner and and remiss and and being sad or crying about his situation. You don't have to cry about your situation. What use will it be if you cry about the situation? You just have to trust God. You just have to trust God. And you have to believe that you are a destroyer of shame. What does not kill you makes you stronger. What was meant to kill you and doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It depends. How do you take how you consider your situation? Mephibosheth was born to destroy shame. Situation brought him to Lo-Debar, to a place of nothingness. But irrespective of the fact that he was in Lo-Debar, it didn't change the fact that he has to destroy shame, because his grandfather Saul brought shame to the lineage. He brought shame. Can you imagine when when David was singing the harp to King Saul, helping him to get rid of all his evil spirits, and the same King Saul will go after David, even right in the caves, to kill David. David, who who took down the head of Goliath, and gave glory to Saul's reign at that time. That same King Saul will go after after David. But thank God for Jonathan, who always go and give him food, who was always there to give him food, to comfort him, to protect him, to even leak the secrets of his father trying to kill him. And that kindness, that was one of the reasons why Mephibosheth left Lo-Debar to the palace. It doesn't matter where you are today. It doesn't matter what has brought you to Lo-Debar, but what matters and what the good news is, Lo-Debar is a place, it's a temporal place. It's not your permanent dwelling place. It's a passing through. It's where you Lo-Debar is a place of breakthrough. Lo-Debar is not a place of settlement. It's a place of breakthrough. Your physical situation, your physical condition, your background, your where you live now is not a permanent address. It's not a permanent situation. It's not a permanent condition. It is a situation where God wants to use to make people know that there is a God. And it depends how you shouldn't look at the situation as if that is the end of the road. If you come to the end of the road, what do you do when you come to an end of a road? In real life, when you come to an end of a road, you're looking for a destination. You come to an end of to an end of the road where the road ends. What do? Do you stay there? Do you stay there and say, I've come to the end of the road? There's no more road? You should be very foolish. Even a fool in his highest degree of foolishness will not stay at the end of that road. You don't stay at the end of the road when you're looking for your destination. You come back and you take the next turn. You keep searching, you keep looking until you get to your destination. So God did not create you to make a shame out of you, but He created you to make to 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 glorify His name through you. He created you to glorify His name through you. So you shouldn't don't don't dwell in your situation. Don't dwell where you are. That is not the right mentality. It's not the right mentality. Those who dwell where those who reach at the end of the road and they dwell at the end of the road, the, there's 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 no solution for people like that. Though at that end of the road, there will be no food, there will be nothing, there will be nothing. He will just stay there until he dies at the end of that road. But when somebody comes at the end of a road, anyone looking for his destination, he comes at the end of the road. He doesn't see his destination. He comes back and he keeps looking for it. He makes huge turns. He keeps looking for the end of the road. He keeps asking people. He keeps moving. So please, and don't dwell where you are. I don't know what your name means. I don't know what brought you to Lo-Debar, what brought you to that state of loneliness? What brought you to that state of desolation? What brought you to that state of barrenness? It's just temporal. It's not a permanent situation. Had it been Mephibosheth was not born to destroy shame, that would have been the end of King Saul's dynasty. None of his children would have ever returned, or his grandchildren would have come back to that palace. But because Mephibosheth was born, and there's also something about the fact that he was lame. Imagine if Mephibosheth had all his limbs. I maybe he would have either tried to fight David, and fighting David is fighting the will of God for that kingdom, because he was born to destroy shame. He would have used any method possible to destroy that shame. And one of the methods maybe was, if he had his limbs, he will fight the will of God to, and he becomes an enemy to David. And certainly, David never lost a battle. David would have killed him, and that would have been the end of Saul's dynasty. But the fact that he was lame and he was in Lo-Debar, he was in a state of searching. He was in a state of openness. He was open to whatever proposal. You know, maybe if he had his legs, he would have traveled to somewhere else, and nobody would have known even where he was. Even when David was at that moment, when David was looking for somebody from Saul's house to show kindness, God's kindness to, he may not. They will never have found him, because he has his two legs and he is just moving up and down. He's just going his way, and that would have been, none of Saul's uh, descendants would have come back to that palace. But Mephibosheth, God allowed the situation to be like this. Sometimes things happen to our lives and we think that it's not always the devil. Not all the bad things that happen to us is always the devil. Notwithstanding, God's plan for us is not that bad things should happen to us. But sometimes God allowed the bad things to happen because He wants to use it as a situation to glorify His name. He wants to use it as a situation to accomplish a particular purpose and a design purpose for a particular time, for a particular person, for a particular village, for a particular family, for a particular nation, for a particular country. Nation, country, yeah. So be encouraged. Don't stay in your Lo-Debar. Keep praying. Keep reminding God. Keep asking God to remember you. Don't just fold your arms. Don't just be satisfied where you are. Keep looking for solutions. Keep asking yourself, what else can I do? What can I do to get better? What can I do to get out of this situation? How can I do to break through? What can I do to break through? Because God is always ready to do something. He's always ready to show His kindness. He's always ready to use someone to demonstrate His kindness to someone else. He's always ready to send a destiny helper. He's always ready to use you to break shame. So be encouraged. Be encouraged. Don't stop. Don't stay at the end of the road. Keep searching for your destination. Keep searching for the road and keep searching in the right place, not in the wrong places. Because there are wrong places. When you come to the end of your road, don't don't take the don't take the bad turn. Look for the right turn that leads to the right road, to the right address. Remain blessed.